if I remember right, Kate, I think we're still going through Romans chapter 8. We only got like the first third.
Yes, we did. We're at verse 14.
14.
That's right. And Kate already made up our sign for today. Ooh, I think. Hello, neighbors.
Oh, that's a pretty dark looking word.
I know,
Piece of paper.
I had the secret word on the other side. They're going to have to guess what the word is on the other side.
I bet if they pause and read from Romans 8, chapter 14 through 17? Yeah, 17. 14 through 17. I bet they can guess what the other
I'm going to give
word
this to
is.
you, and I'm going to go ahead and take my mask off since we're sitting appropriately here. But let's take a look at, and we've got all of our neighbors all incorporated in. So
You're our neighbor too.
let's take a look at verses 14 through 17. And I think building up, we've been talking about how this is all a gift. It's all the gospel. We are saints and sinners at the same time. I think you can see that on both. Well, it looks the same on both ways, doesn't it? Sinner. Saint. Okay. All right. And all of it is tied to the cross. But today we're going to deal with feelings of being enslaved or abandoned. I think that's how this fits. So let's take a look at 14. And Kate, do you want to start? But you know I'm going to correct you because they've changed some of the wording here in the new international version.
Because those who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God.
And this says children of God. And it makes use of son in another passage. Yeah.
For you did not receive a spirit that makes you a slave again to fear, but you received the spirit of sonship, and by him we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself testified with our spirit that we are God's children. Now, if we are God's children, then we are heirs, heirs of God, and co-heirs with Christ. If indeed we share in his suffering, in order that we may also share in his glory.
Ooh, I see a footnote there of
Yes.
another word that's different. When it says, yeah. So, for we did not receive a spirit that makes you a slave again to fear, but you received the spirit of sonship. And then the footnote says adoption. I wonder what our other word is on our sheet.
I don't know.
Abandoned or adopted. And we wanted to play with that theme of you are no longer a slave, you are a son. But that whole concept of adoption is what we really wanted to play with.
Yeah.
That in fact, Paul is talking about how remember how Kate, we talked a couple of months back, we're no longer in old Egypt.
No, we're not.
Now we are children of God out in the wilderness going toward the promise. But there's a part in us that constantly looks back to the old slavery, that old stuff that still entices us. Because we are still sinners while we are saints. Yeah. So it talked about adoption, that the Spirit has to put a new spirit inside of us that says, you are adopted children of God.
I like that image. It's really cool of being adopted as children of God, but I'm kind of struggling to fully understand what that means, because I've never been adopted before.
Kate, you weren't adopted either. Guess what? I wasn't either. But I did have some marvelous conversations with somebody who once was enslaved to all sorts of things, and in fact they felt abandoned, and part of it was they felt abandoned by their natural family until finally they were adopted. But even then it was a struggle, because I remember baptizing this person on, of all days, a Reformation Day. Okay, a day that they were They wanted to be baptized now as a child of God. And this became their favorite verse. They had to learn, even though a number of fathers had abandoned them, they had to learn to say, Abba, Father, cry out to Daddy. And it was mainly because there were times that they just forgot they belonged to God. But then this verse would come hammering back at them and say, remember, you are a child of God. Not because of something that you earned.
Yeah.
In fact, they realized they had fallen far short of it.
Yeah. It almost sounds like there's a connection to that being adopted. You're like fully part of a family.
Fully part of a family that you didn't earn, and you can't really say, well, they took me in because they just love me, because
It's a gift.
it's a gift.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
It was a gift.
What is there not?
And the gift was going to transform them. The gift would change them, rather than they be accepted because they were already changed. It would change them.
Pastor John, that sounds pretty familiar to something Kate was saying with a
That's
lot
right.
of emphasis last week.
Yeah,
What was that, Kate?
Well, hold on, Kate.
I want to know.
Yeah, because there were all sorts of things that kept coming back and trying to put judgment on them and saying, see, you didn't deserve it. What did they have to learn?
There is now no condemnation.
No condemnation. They belong to the family. Yeah. You're doing that hammering even better, Kate.
That's funny. It's interesting though, because being part of a family, there is no condemnation.
No,
But there is some other things.
and there's still some struggles. There's still some struggles, and there's still some judgments that come down. But they come down in a different form. Not to say you can't belong, but instead,
Out of love.
you have a name. You have a name. Live up to your name. Yeah.
As an heir, you have responsibilities.
Ooh, that's very good, because doesn't this bring up the fact that we're heirs of God? And that brings us into the relationship fully, that we have responsibilities. And in fact, we may even get to, the way this thing ends, we may have to understand some of the sufferings that we go through are connected with Jesus.
Well, Jesus certainly suffered.
Yeah. And in fact, I think, there were times that I talked with this gal and I just wondered, who would be able to help her understand that she belonged, that she was adopted into this family? Who would help her be able to understand, coming back, we keep coming back to our big brother by adoption. Our big brother.
Yeah, it even says we're co-heirs with Christ, with Jesus.
So maybe we keep learning in our struggles to say, Abba, another A word. We're not abandoned, we're adopted. And now we can cry out, Abba, Father.
Daddy.
That's a good way to say, we'll see you later, neighbor.
See you later, neighbor.